Welcome to the Voice podcast, the voice of integrity, compassion, and empathy. Your host, Gemma Norris, and I have with me today with this episode is Lianne Baker. Now, she works for the Enfuse Group as head of people, and we discuss basically the roles of the health and well-being of employees and whose responsibility it is and the culture of creating that, and ultimately to recognize that having compassion doesn't cost. And we just explore this in much more detail to understand that we are a collective of individual humans, and how we would treat each other as one-to-one is ultimately the same to one-to-many. We are all humans, and this is how we become greater, more powerful when we recognize this. So enjoy, and thank you for listening. So welcome listeners to the Voice podcast, the voice of integrity, compassion and empathy. And I have a wonderful guest with me today, Lianne Baker from Enfuse Group, who is the head of people. And I got to, basically it's through social media, to meet Lianne. And it was a beautiful post, a very sort of from the heart, which just really captured my attention. And it's about her sister and how she'd been treated. And I just could see there was so much love through that. So I reached out to you and really just wanted to sort of hear more about your journey, how you've got to be where you are, and just the whole compassion that you have to be within the workplace and the culture. So welcome, Lianne. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So what would be beautiful to do is just to really get an understanding a little bit more about your experiences and how you got to now with the compassion that you have and being with your views on being a good people person in human resources, head of people.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've worked in this career for a number of years now. I won't say how many. A number of those were before I had children. And then, in the last sort of 9 years has been since having children. And I've been through a lot of life experiences during that time. We sadly went through baby loss and infertility, went through redundancy, also went through not being able to go back to my job part-time after I had my first baby. So I've been through lots of different life experiences in that time, all whilst working in an HR department and seeing other people going through their own life experiences. And I think it just made me realise what was lacking in terms of the support that I had going through some of these life things, and just feeling like I was treated very much just like a number, like a name on a page, and not really being treated as the person that I was and the things that I was going through. And I think going through all of those different circumstances, the biggest thing I've learned is to treat people like humans, to treat them like people, because, going through baby loss, whilst trying to come back into work and do a job, was really, really tricky, and no one knew how to support me. I didn't really know what was expected of me. I came back to work after a couple of days.
Wow.
And now I know that was a terrible thing to do, but it was I just didn't feel I could be off for longer. I didn't feel people really understood. But I was in emotional and physical pain. I don't know what I was thinking going back. And then going through years of infertility, whilst again being surrounded, HR is often full of women. My team is full of women. And, I was the person people would come to say they were pregnant, and I had to give them all their maternity information. And doing that for sort of four years whilst going through my own infertility was heartbreaking. And then I was made redundant and had to start a new job whilst also going through this. At no point did I feel supported, really. At no point did I feel I was being treated in a sort of compassionate way. When I was going through a really tricky time, dealing with all the hormones that I was taking as part of my IVF treatment, I was pulled aside for being grumpy. And, apparently my mood was impacting the rest of the team. I didn't realise, and, I'm sure my hormones were all over the place, but the way that was dealt with was not done with compassion, and it wasn't taking into consideration my circumstances. And yeah, I was probably really difficult to be around. I was crying most days and really struggling with it. But it just, again, I just felt like I wasn't treated like a human, like a person with a life beyond the desk that I was sitting at. And I think, having been in these departments whilst other people have been dealing with life situations that have been really tricky, and seeing decisions made that were made by more senior people than me, so the decisions weren't in my hand, but seeing them and thinking, that's not how I would have done that, and that's not the best way to have treated people. So it's definitely it's inspired me to be a better people professional, and it's inspired me to make decisions that are based on humans being individual and being human, and trying to get, while still protecting the organization, of course, that is one of the biggest things that we have to do in our role, but just treating every situation with an element of compassion and thinking, hang on a minute, what if that was me that was going through that? What if that was my sister? What if that was one of my best friends or a family member? How would I want them to be treated? And always coming back to that question, am I being human?
Yeah, and that's really important. It's that humanness, that's what we're here. And we're not just, like you say, numbers, or it might have been okay in the industrial revolution, at the production farming, but this is not what we're looking from people, is it? We're looking for them to be their full expression, who they are. And when you're treating them like you're just a number, you're never going to get the right element from them, are you? So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's thank you for sharing that. It's such a, I can feel the deep journey that you've gone on there, and
Yeah.
to have gone through everything that you've gone through, and to have found your strength to really rise up from it. And you're not carrying this I've been wounded and this victim energy. You're literally have gone, well, I want to change things. This is not how I want it. And it feels like it's just given you so much passion and purpose.
It definitely has. And I think, the post that you saw about my sister was a classic example of an HR department not treating her like a human. She just returned from her second maternity leave to a flexible position that she loved, that she was good at, and they just changed their mind. They preferred her temporary cover, so they had a very interesting redundancy process for my sister, which just left her feeling absolutely awful at a time where she didn't need that additional stress in her life. I mean, thankfully, she's found a much better job where they actually treat her as she should be treated. But it is full time. She couldn't find something that was flexible. So, that's been a huge compromise for her. And seeing that happen to her, and it doesn't just happen to a couple of people, it happens to so many people. It's not a unique story that a woman has a baby and isn't allowed to return to the job that she loves. It happened to almost all of my friends,
Yeah.
and it's still happening now.
It is, and I think they talk about equality and rising up the pay gaps and things, but I mean that's a huge topic on its own in terms of how does this get addressed, really. But with regards to and how you turned it around, what was it that just literally made you go, enough is enough? I'm going to step up here and find my voice and express.
I honestly think becoming a parent was the biggest catalyst to me finding my voice, not only because of, how I was treated after I had my first baby, not being able to return to a job, and then struggling to find something that was flexible. It just made me have a bit more of a passion behind my views. my opinion wasn't just for me then. My life wasn't just for me. I had a child to be responsible for, and I owed it to him to, find the job that I needed to speak up for things that I believed in. And I think it really changed me. Not only that, but having a son, and then quickly having another son, two boys that were under 2 at one point. I mean, you have to be pretty good at having a voice, because it gets very loud. So it definitely gave me a bit more assertiveness too. But I think it just, all of those things happening all at once just made me think, hang on a minute, I do have a voice, and my voice is important and it is relevant. And because I'm trying to do things for the greater good, not just selfishly for me, I'm looking at how I can change things and how I can put into place better practice that hopefully inspires other professionals in this area to think, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right thing to do? Is there a better way to do it? It helped that in recent years, my current job and the one that I had before, they actually really liked my voice and liked my ideas, and I was thanked for them and, told I was doing a good job. And that's also helped because it's made me have more confidence in what I've been doing. And then because I've been able to win awards for the company that I'm at now, for the company and some that are for me, it's cemented that, well, I must be doing something right. I must be doing something good. So, maybe it's worth putting my opinion onto things, writing things, sharing things, and just standing up for what I believe in a little bit more.
Yeah, I think hearing your story there, it's this, I think a lot of women struggle with self-worth and also believing that their voice has levitation to it. It's someone's got depth to it. People are going to hear it and listen to it. It has not necessarily authority, but it has depth to it to be heard. And it feels like that shift from not just you, but being a parent just made this whole step up to go, no, I will be heard, but it's also coming from you too. Sometimes we often activate to bring something for the greater good. It's because we're seeing how it affects others, isn't it? But it's also to be able to do that for ourselves as well is really important. And I just think it's so lovely that you've been on this journey and actually recognizing that actually what you have to share is actually really valued. And like you say, you're winning awards. Not that you need awards to prove that, but you're doing it. So do you ever give moments just to kind of take stock and go, well, I'm a 3, I'm doing this. I'm actually quite good.
No, I'm not really, but I think it's nice to know that the people around me are proud of what I've achieved and are happy with what I've achieved. And I don't need loads of praise or anything like that, but it's just nice when people go, oh, well done, that was really good. And I see it benefiting the company as well. We're attracting people to work for us because of some of the great things that we've done. They're seeing these things, and I see that as a result. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, brilliant. And as you say that, really coming onto that, I mean, many companies are getting in different workplaces their sort of well-being or the structures and the procedures and things, but sometimes it can just be a tick box exercise to say I've done it, but there necessarily isn't the value or recognizing the value behind it. Is that something that you could be able to go into a little bit more depth in terms of, is so much more to it than ticking a box and just saying, oh yeah, okay, health and well-being done? What value do they get back, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's hugely important, because we spend so much of our time at work. So you can't just you can't separate health and well-being from work. It has to be kind of embedded. I'm not saying that we're perfect at this. We are a very busy consultancy. We work really, really hard and we have demanding clients. So I'm not going to, stand there and say, yeah, it's absolutely amazing. We've got it exactly perfect. But what we have we have in place is a really sort of flexible attitude to work. You know, we've recently taken on an office, but we're saying, you know, you don't have to be there. You don't have to be based there X number of days. You can work from where you need to work, which gives people a bit of flexibility, and that can help with health and well-being. We've also created a lot of well, we have got some really good benefits in place, which I think are kind of a bare minimum. You should have some good benefits in place. But we have also created a bit of a health and well-being culture. You know, we talk about it. We encourage people to go out and have walking meetings and go for a run at lunchtime. You know, we made sure that the building that we got an office in had a shower so that people could cycle to work or run to work or have, you know, a lunch break when they can go to the gym. So we really have tried to create a really sort of an authentic culture that enables people to talk about well-being and health. You know, we don't shy away from talking about our mental health and when we're feeling a little bit overwhelmed or a bit down. And some of the benefits that we have in place, we have ULife, which is our life insurance policy, and they have an app that you can do quests in meditation, you can do a workout, and you get coins for that. And there's also like a table of how many steps people have done each month that people get a little bit competitive about. But that all helps with this culture, and it sort of helps us to talk about these things as well.
It gets them talking about it as well, isn't it? So that's
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing I heard you say about haven't got quite right, we're not perfect. And it's like, well, the answer to that is because we're human.
Yes.
We're perfect in our imperfections, and we have to really recognize that, because I mean, I think the pressure that we think that everything has to look just so, and I think social media and everything else, that your life has to look just so, it becomes very stressful, and that puts people that they think they've got to be a certain way rather than being their true self. And I guess looking with the culture, it's, would you say helping people find who they really are and express themselves candidly, compassionately, would be something your company does and others should do?
Yeah, it definitely is. I think we wanted to create a company and a place to work where people feel that they can bring their authentic selves to work. And the reason why is because, you know, we are consultants, you know, our product is our people. So if we have people who are working for us who are thriving, and they're thriving because they can be fully themselves and know that they're fully accepted as themselves, then that benefits us in so many different ways. You know, not only have we got a very engaged, very happy workforce, but they're doing a good job for our clients. And if they're doing a good job for our clients, then our clients come back for more. And it's also much easier for us to bring in new clients because they're like, wow, what a great company. We want to work with you as well. So that's why we know it's so important. And the things that we've done to kind of enable this authentic workforce where people can be themselves is we've got a really good D&I policy. We really make sure that our recruitment from day one, they really understand who we are as people and get to know lots of people on the recruitment journey. And then we have so many policies in place that kind of basically cover every life event you can think of. And I make sure people read that within their first few weeks of being with us so that they can really understand that we don't just say we care, we genuinely do. We look at all of these different things that can happen in your life, and we have policies for divorce, we have it for cancer rehabilitation, menopause, baby loss, fertility treatment. I mean, the list goes on and on. We even have one for pet bereavement. We're a company of animal lovers.
Yeah.
And we're not, you know, throwing loads of additional resources at people. We're not saying, oh, yeah, you can have like months and months of paid time off. That's not feasible in a small company like ours. We're just saying, if you are going through one of these things, we understand and we are there to support you. So speak up. Tell us so that we can support you. And it might just be putting a bit of flexible working in place for them. It might be directing them to one of the benefits that we have in place. But it's just saying, we know that you're human, so don't be afraid to show that you're human. And I think the other thing that we do that really helps enable that is we lead by example as well. Using the example of being parents, all the directors in the company are parents, and we parent loudly. You know, the men in the company that are parents pick up their kids from school and they talk about it. They tell people that they're doing it. You know, when kids are sick, they're like, yeah, sorry, kids sick in the background, don't mind them.
Right, yeah.
It makes it real, and it gives people permission to have their own life as well, because these things happen. You know, they're completely out of your control. I think COVID certainly helped with that, when people were working from home and they literally had their life in the background. It's definitely changed the culture in a lot of companies, but I think at Enfuse we've always been like that, and I think we're just making sure that when we bring people into the company, they understand that we are that type of place, and that we really want them to be themselves.
No, I mean, that's brilliant. And I think from my perspective, when you have that open communication and you have that support and know that you can be you're in your most creative energy to bring that in. And when you're in your creative energy, you look at things in a higher perspective, and enables you to look at life, business in a different way. You know, if you come more solution based or more creatively. So that's really important that you've that whole expression, that person. So I can really see that, especially as consultation, you need to be that full expression of yourself, don't you? So thank you for that. And
well, one of our values is be candid. So, you know, and we try to really live by our values. And I think that is not just how we speak to each other, and you know, we like to give feedback and get feedback, and we're candid with our clients as well, but a lot of that comes down to being honest about who we are.
And I think integrity shows, and words can say things, but it's the essence behind it and the tone behind it, and like you say, the actions behind it gives you that integrity, which I think people are looking for more and more, especially with AI coming out, the woodwork, well, not woodwork, but it's just coming out, but it's people are going to go, is that genuine? And I think what you're doing really states that in terms of people being able to find their truth. So thank you. It's I was going to say, you have done so much work in terms of putting policies together for every possible sort of life event. Where would you say like responsibility lays for an employee's health and well-being?
I think it's both, to be honest. You know, I think you like I mentioned, you spend a lot of time at work every single day. So I do think it's up to the company to enable you to think about your health and well-being in a normal day. But it's also down to you as well to know what you need, to know kind of what gives you a healthy balance, you know, to know sort of what are pinch points for you, to know like when you're going through a difficult time. You know, we as a company don't necessarily know, we're not telepathic. You know, I know lots of people think HR professionals are, but sadly we're not. So what we encourage is that people recognize when their performance might be impacted by other things going on in their life. That might be their health, it might be, you know, personal situations. There's all sorts of things that may impact them. It might be a work thing, it might be stress, but just to be open and honest about it with themselves and with us, so that we can kind of help them through that. But I definitely think it's down to both parties to manage health and well-being, but definitely for the employer to enable it. You know, like I said, with a culture, having benefits in place, having flexibility in place that allows them to take time out from their desk, so that it's, you know, not such a culture that's focused on hours and sitting at your desk. You can be equally productive away from your desk. So I think we just have to make sure that that line of communication remains open.
No, definitely. And as you were talking there, it kind of gave me an image of actually the employer is the one that holds the space, and it's the culture creation through all the practices that you put together and that open communication space. And so a little bit like how I am as a therapist, I hold that space for the people that come onto my couch, yet I will do work and I will help, but it's their responsibility. It's their choices that ultimately it's their health and well-being. So it's kind of taking empowerment of yourself, but equally the employer is about holding that space and to enable them to do that. And that you so that's kind of sort of like the mirror imaging there with a company, and just a one-to-one and then a company to one to many. So so thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I was just wondering if there's anything in terms of, so if there's a new company that is really thinking that they need to look at more what they can do to improve their culture. I mean, obviously, first of all, they've got to desire it. So
Yeah.
they might not even be listening to that. But if someone is literally what I want to create a better culture, what would the stepping stones be, would you say?
I mean, it's tricky, and I think, you know, we had the advantage that, you know, the company was started in 2016 by directors who very much led the culture that we have now. You know, it's obviously changed and grown over the time, but the company was started on the right sort of foundations. I think it's much harder when you're in a bigger company that's always, you know, it's already got quite an established culture. So there's no like easy fix of kind of, right, let's, you know, change the culture day one, let's go. There's not a really easy path to that, but I think that there's lots of little things that you can do certainly to improve a culture and improve how you treat people, and certainly just have that view of treating people like humans, like individuals. And I think some of that comes down to, as I said, the policies. You know, the first thing I've done since joining this company was I ripped up the old handbook. It was full of legal jargon. It felt like a rule book. It just didn't feel like the company that I had been told that I had joined. And they agreed, you know, they were like, yeah, we know, like, go for it. So that's why I sort of, you know, ripped it up and started again. It's still got the things that it needs to have in it, but that's when I added all these additional policies. I was like, well, I know we had the example actually when I joined. It was all over LinkedIn that somebody had lost a baby, and their company had basically expected them to return to work almost immediately, you know, being like, oh, it doesn't really fit into the normal categories of sickness, so, you know, we expect you back. And, you know, they said to me as an example, like, well, we know we would never do that. Obviously we wouldn't do that, but we haven't got anything in writing that says that. So that was the first policy that I wrote, and having been through it obviously gives me a bit more life experience to know actually what would have been beneficial. So just looking at, you know, the language that you have behind things like that is so important, because if you have employees going through really difficult times and they pick up the handbook to look for, what, you know, do I get any time off? Like, what should I do? Like, what's the process? And if they pick up something that looks like, you know, legal jargon with zero personality or warmth in it, that's like, yeah, you get 1 day paid sickness and then you're off. They might not be able to afford any additional time, which may, you know, make them make choices maybe like the ones I did, that aren't helpful, and overall isn't going to help them or the company. So I think you just need to look at what support and what communication you have in these different things, so that you can start treating people more like the humans that they are. And then again, policy should be guidance. Policy should not be black and white. That's it. You know, your policy is there to help you and advise, but take the question back. Am I being human? Is this the right thing to do for this person? You know, I think compassionate leave policies are the worst because, you know, it's like, yeah, you can have 2 days off for the loss of an immediate family member. I mean, my goodness, that is not fit for purpose. And again, so many companies are, well, that's our policy. You've got to take some of that policy away and just think, is this the right thing to do for that person in this really horrible situation? So I think that's the very first step. And having very well trained HR people, professionals, having well trained line managers to deal with these situations. And if they're not able to know exactly where to signpost people to.
Yeah.
so that someone else who is equipped to deal with bigger problems knows how to.
Mm.
And then I think having values that you actually understand and that actually make sense to your company. We redeveloped ours a couple of years ago because the ones that we had were good, but I think there were 6. People always forgot at least 1 or 2 of them, if not all of them. And we were like, no, we want values that actually not only people remember, but people live by and make decisions by on a day-to-day basis. So I think never underestimate the power of really strong company values that you live by.
Mm.
And having a mission and a vision for the company that has a line in it about the people that you're taking on the journey. Because I've seen lots of kind of company statements and visions that are all about increasing profitability and becoming really successful. But I always say, but where are the people?
Yeah.
You know, where are they on that journey? Because that's just a phrase that doesn't really mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to take people on the journey, and you've got to want to. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you don't, and if you're like, nah, I'm not really bothered about whether people, stay forever or not, they will know, and they will come and go, and they won't be loyal to the company. So, if you've got people who are really engaged in what you're trying to achieve, then that will enable the culture to improve and be a place that people want to be in.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, so you get that image of if you've got these missions but with no depth to it, it just drops, or it's a pulling, really hard way of running your business. Whereas if you've engaged all the right people, being the more creative, being supportive, it just naturally moves in that right direction, doesn't it? So it's no matter how many KPIs you want to put in, presenteeism, absenteeism, you're if you're not addressing that whole with working through this together and bringing more soul to your business.
And you've got to be inclusive as well, because you could be the most diverse company in the world, but if you're not inclusive and you don't have fair policies and processes in place that enables everybody equally to succeed and to thrive, then again, you're going to create a negative culture where people feel that it's unfair and that, someone like them who, whatever they are and can't succeed because of X, Y, and Z. You've got to make sure that, it all comes across as being completely equal, and so that people feel that they're in a place that is right for them.
Yeah. And also, I guess, to question the status quo, to not do things the way you've done it. Well, that's just the way we've done it.
Oh yeah, I've worked for a lot of those companies. Yeah, well, it's worked for 100 years, so why change it now?
Yeah. And we're seeing that in so many things, that people questioning and people wanting more purpose. And this is what mental health is if people aren't living into their purpose, to their natural, their gifts and talents, it's very grey, isn't it? And I think that's when we start seeing people just closing down or not giving them full selves to what they do. Because I think is it 70% of our life is spent at work, so it's a long time.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, it's changed as well. It used to be the attitude of the company where it was like, what can our employees do for us? And I think it's switched, but rightly so. Now people come into a job and they're like, well, what can you do for me? Why should I join your company? What am I going to get from it? And it's changed that dynamic, I think, in a positive way, a really positive way. But that's because I know that we do offer quite a lot for people. So, I think we're in a good position for that.
yeah, well, that's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for sharing this with us. I mean, there's plenty that we could discuss, and maybe we could do that in terms of looking at different aspects and building up in that, especially the whole women equality, children would be a huge topic to get through, isn't it? So
yeah, and we've actually just done an audit recently on that with a company called Lead 50/50, who have done a complete audit of our gender pay gap. And so we've just received the report. So we've got like lots of really great actions to put in place so that we can just make sure that we again are doing what we say we want to do, and really making it fair, because I think there's some things that we had in place that we didn't even realize that just language that's used or things that aren't shared on our website that may put off women applying for us. So we didn't even know, we didn't even realize. So doing an audit like that has given us a lot. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about on that.
Wow. I love the fact that you literally are mirroring and look self-reflecting. Okay, how you're talking from a business perspective is how I would look as an individual perspective, how you would ask yourself to look within and reflect to see the language that you're talking to yourself with. Is it positive? Is it negative? So it's interesting how business is expanding that. But ultimately that comes down to that one individual, that human oscillating in tenfold, thousandfold, isn't it? So it's the core, isn't it? It's really getting to the core root of what it is to be a human.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much. And it would definitely be a pleasure to get you back and discussing these. So is there anything else that you would like to share before we finish?
I don't think so, but I'm always here to help other people. And I know sometimes, especially with things like designing new policies, sometimes it can be, a big area of unknown. So I'm always willing, if people ever want to connect with me, or to find out more about what we're doing as a company, Enfuse Group, then have a look. Where we put a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, so it's all there.
Sounds like you've got a consultation of head of people evolving.
Yeah, I mean they would love that if I did that on the side as well. But at the minute it's all it's mainly internal. But I do like to share things that I can to help others, because it's a journey that we're all on together, and overall it's just important that we're all trying to get to a better place as people professionals.
Oh, perfect. We need more people like you in businesses to bring life and back in passion into work and things. So thank you so much, and
Thank you.
everything that you've been through and where you are now. So thank you. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much.